Hello, so I'm back again already with another book review video for you. You might remember some time ago, if you've been watching my videos regularly, that at one point I was reading 4 books at once. So I was reading a non-fiction book, a book to work on myself, a fiction book, no, maybe it was 3 at a time, not 4. Yeah, non-fiction, fiction, and work on myself. Yeah, so I think it was 3. But because of that, it meant some of the books I was reading I was taking much longer to read, because I had to kind of prioritise any of the books that were reserved by other people, which I've had a few of recently that I've had to return for that reason. So the last book that I videoed, the fairy book that I owned, obviously I owned it, so I didn't have to rush to read it. So it did take me a while, even though it wasn't a very big book in terms of length. This next one is also taken me ages to read, and this was my work on myself book. So it's called Fierce Self-Compassion: How Women Can Harness Kindness to Speak Up, Claim Their Power and Thrive, by Dr. Kristin, neff. So this was my work on myself one, which I've spent months actually reading it, and it's not huge. It's not tiny either, but it's not huge. But I had to prioritise other books, so I actually really took my time reading this one. And this is this is a library book, but this one is going on my want to own list, which doesn't happen too often unless it's a book that I really enjoy, or that I think is going to be really helpful to keep returning and coming back to. So yeah, this one I felt like was like that. I kind of read it very slowly, as I said, so I kind of felt like I could have given it a bit more attention than what I actually gave, because it's a book that's full of activities. Not all of them were relevant to myself, and I did do some of them, but not all of them. And there was definitely some other ones that I didn't do that might be helpful for me, not just to have a look at, but maybe to integrate into daily life. And I think if I had focused more on this book, maybe I could have, practiced those a bit more. Hence why I'd like to buy a copy of this book and integrate those things into my daily life. It was a very good book. Really good for working on yourself, because it's something which is discussed in here that is very challenging for women in particular, hence why it's aimed at women. The exercises were like little meditations, but also little quizzes and little compassion exercises you can do in certain circumstances. Through reading this book, unsurprisingly, I learned that I have quite low self-compassion and treat others with more compassion than I do myself. And there was another bit that kind of talked about how women tend to be higher in what's called communion, in like putting other people first, I guess, and lower in agency generally. And I did find that I did fit into that as well, that when I did the little quiz, that I'm high in the communion thing, but a bit low in the agency side of things. And yeah, it's very common for women to fit into that because of internalized stereotypes that we hold even when we're not aware of them, which, I would have thought I kind of like that, but there are still things that are just internalized, so it happens regardless. And in this book she talks about how you have to balance the yin and yang side of yourself. So it's not about having more agency than communion, but it's finding the balance between the two of like, yeah, kind of compassion for yourself, but also for others as well, both being really important. Let me see, I'm just looking at my notes. There was lots of good chapters in it. There was a section about if you've been through abuse and trauma, which wasn't so relevant for myself, but it would be helpful for probably a lot of people. And there's a chapter about the importance of anger, particularly for women. One line was really resonant. It's like, women aren't allowed to express anger in the same way men are. We tend to turn it inward into the form of self-criticism, which really touched the nerve actually, because I think that's really, really true. I can definitely recognise that within myself. It speaks about how we tend to treat friends and family differently than what we treat ourselves. When it comes to compassion, we might feel sorry and try and make things easier and gentler for friends, but for ourselves we're like, oh, you stupid twat, or whatever, which again, I think a lot of people can probably relate to that. And she also mentions the paradox about self-compassion, that we have to remember not to use it as a way of like blocking our emotions as such. She says, you know, obviously we want the compassion to help us lessen our suffering, but it's essential not to use it in a kind of in a manipulative way, not trying to get rid of your bad feelings, but accepting your pain and using that kindness to because of the pain, but not denying that pain, because we obviously have to feel things to heal them, but we do deserve to be kind to ourselves because we're feeling that pain, but not to get rid of that pain, which, yeah, is a really good point. So yeah, excellent book, really recommend it. She's not a Buddhist, I believe, but it says she spent the past 20 years researching self-compassion, and she created an 8-week program called Mindful Self-Compassion, which is taught worldwide, and she co-founded a no-profit organisation called the Centre for Mindful Self-Compassion. So yeah, really, really good. Highly recommend it if that feels resonant for you. Yeah, really good. I definitely want to buy a copy at some point. So I've talked about this way more than I thought I would, as usual. So yeah, that will cover that one, and I will probably be back very, very soon because I've nearly finished another book. So I'll probably be back very, very soon. Drop a comment below if you've read this book and what you thought of it, or just anything you're reading right now that you think's interesting. Love to know, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye.